The security camera showed the same man, every Tuesday, 4:45 p.m. sharp for 20 years. Sarah Montgomery had reviewed hundreds of customer files in her first week as CEO, but this one made her freeze. Daniel Cooper, account opened when he was 15 and still needed a legal guardian, was now 35 and had never missed a single Tuesday deposit. Same bank, same time, same ritual. But here's what stopped her cold. $52,000 accumulated over 2 decades, and not $1 ever withdrawn. The amounts were small, sometimes just $5, sometimes $47, but they never stopped. The address on file showed a modest Ballard apartment, the kind where low-income workers live. The teller's notes were simple. Tuesday regular, 20 years, never late. Sarah watched the footage again, worn work boots, flannel shirt, hands that moved with quiet precision as he filled out the deposit slip. What kind of promise makes a man save for 20 years without ever touching it? What was he protecting that mattered more than his own survival? Sarah had been CEO of Pacific Northwest Bank for 9 days when Eleanor Price appeared in her doorway with tea and information. Eleanor had worked at the bank for 38 years and knew where all the bodies were buried, metaphorically speaking. She moved through the building like it was her own kitchen, and people listened when she talked. "There's a customer you should know about," Eleanor said, setting the tea on Sarah's desk without asking. "Daniel Cooper. Been coming every Tuesday at 4:45 for 20 years. Started when he was 15. Sarah pulled up the account. The pattern emerged slowly. Small deposits, relentless consistency, 0 withdrawals. $52,000 over 2 decades. He's never taken anything out. Not once. His mother opened it with him before she died. Cancer. He was just a kid." Eleanor's voice softened. She told him to keep putting something aside every week, no matter how small. Said it was about remembering tomorrow exists. Sarah stared at the numbers, thinking about her own mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to keep Sarah in private school, who'd told her to aim high, climb fast, never look back. Sarah had listened, climbed all the way to Wall Street by 25, made partner at 30, and somewhere along the way stopped calling home because she was always in meetings. Her mother had died 2 years ago, and Sarah had missed the funeral because she was closing a deal in Tokyo. The guilt sat in her chest like a stone that never dissolved. "Where's he work?" Sarah asked, pushing the memory down. "Warehouse. Pacific Maritime Supply." Eleanor moved toward the door. "Used to work here, actually. Financial analyst. 7 years. Left when his daughter was born and his wife died in childbirth. Said Lily needed him present, not successful." After Eleanor left, Sarah sat with those words. Present, not successful. She'd spent 15 years chasing success, and the corner office felt emptier every day. She looked at the calendar. Tuesday, 4:43. She went downstairs, telling herself it was about understanding the customer base. But really, she wanted to see the man who'd kept a 20-year promise to a dead mother while raising a living daughter alone. Wanted to see if people like that actually existed or if they were just stories bankers told each other. Daniel Cooper entered at 4:44, and Sarah felt something shift in the air. He was exactly what his transaction history suggested. Worn, steady, carrying weight that didn't show up in files. Canvas work pants that had been washed until the knees went soft. Flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. Boots that had been resoled twice and oiled regularly. His face was all angles and quiet strength, with a scar along his jawline that looked like it had a story. When he moved, it was with the economy of someone who'd learned to waste nothing, not even motion. He filled out his deposit slip with practiced precision, using a pen he'd brought with him because the bank's pens were always dried out or stolen. His handwriting was neat, controlled, the kind that came from years of filling out forms that mattered. Maria, the head teller, greeted him with genuine warmth. "Right on time, Mr. Cooper. Wouldn't want to break the streak." His voice was quieter than Sarah expected, but it carried. The kind of voice that didn't need volume to be heard. "How's your grandson?" "Growing like a weed." "Thank you for asking." Maria processed the deposit with the ease of long practice. $47, savings account. Yes, ma'am. Sarah found herself moving closer before she'd decided to. Mr. Cooper. He turned, and she saw his eyes for the first time faded denim blue, careful and assessing. Up close, she could see the calluses on his palms, the way his shoulders carried tension like he was braced for the next crisis. Yes, I'm Sarah Montgomery, new CEO. She offered her hand, and his handshake was brief, firm, the grip of someone who'd worked with his hands. Eleanor mentioned you've been with us a long time. 20 years. No elaboration, no pride, just fact. That's remarkable loyalty. My mother opened the account. His tone stayed level, but she heard the boundary in it. This was not a conversation he wanted to have. Seemed right to keep it going. I'm sorry for your loss. He nodded once, and Sarah recognized the gesture of someone who'd heard those words so many times they'd lost all meaning, polite and hollow as coins rubbed smooth. If you'll excuse me, I need to pick up my daughter. But Sarah couldn't let it go. Something about him pulled at her, made her want to understand. The account has quite a balance. You've never withdrawn anything. His eyes sharpened just slightly, but she caught it, a wariness entering. No, ma'am. May I ask why? The silence stretched between them. Behind the counter, Maria had moved on to the next customer. Somewhere in the building, a phone rang. Daniel Cooper looked at Sarah with those careful eyes and seemed to decide something. It's not for me, he said finally. It's for later. When it's needed. Later? When Lily needs it. His voice carried the weight of a promise spoken aloud. College. Future. Whatever she requires. He glanced toward the door, toward responsibilities waiting. I really do need to go. Sarah stepped back, releasing him from the conversation. Of course. It was good to meet you. You too, Miss Montgomery. She watched him leave, watched his truck, ancient blue Ford, meticulously maintained despite its age, pull out of the lot and merge into the 4:30 traffic. Through the window, she saw him check his watch, calculating minutes to Lily's school, always counting time. Eleanor appeared at her shoulder. Satisfied? He has a daughter. Lily, 7 years old. Lost her mother the day she was born. Complications during delivery. Eleanor's voice carried the gentle weight of someone who'd watched this story unfold. Daniel raised her alone from day one. 2 a.m. feedings, colic, toddler tantrums, all of it. Left a $60,000 salary to work warehouse for $28,000. Never complained once. The numbers hit Sarah like a punch. She'd spent years moving millions for hedge funds, bonuses that could have changed Daniel's life dropping into her account like rain. And here was a man who'd walked away from security for presence, from career for fatherhood, from everything Wall Street said mattered. What did his mother die of? Sarah asked quietly. Breast cancer. Stage 4 when they caught it. She was a nurse at Swedish Medical Center. Worked doubles to keep Daniel fed, clothed, in decent schools. Eleanor looked toward the door where Daniel had left. She wrote him a letter before she passed. Told him the deposits weren't about money. They were about hope. Building it $1 at a time, even when everything else was falling apart. Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. How do you know about the letter? She came in to set up the account. Brought Daniel with her, he was so young, trying not to cry in front of his mother because he thought he needed to be strong. She looked at him and said, Someday you'll understand why this matters. And when that day comes, you'll know what to do with it. Eleanor's eyes were bright. That was 17 years ago. He's kept the promise every single week. After Eleanor left, Sarah pulled Daniel Cooper's old employment file from the bank's archives. His performance reviews read like someone the company couldn't afford to lose. Exceptional analytical skills, practical creativity, natural leadership that emerged in crisis situations. He'd been promoted 3 times in 7 years, from junior analyst to senior, on track for management before he resigned. The resignation letter was brief. Professional, 2 weeks' notice. Personal reasons. No forwarding position. But there was a note from his supervisor, handwritten on the margin. tried everything to keep him. Offered flexibility, reduced hours, remote work. He said Lily needed someone present, not someone checking email between diaper changes. We're losing someone irreplaceable. Sarah closed the file and looked out at the Seattle skyline, at the cranes building towers for people who measured success in height and square footage. She thought about Daniel Cooper in his warehouse, lifting boxes and managing logistics, using 10% of his brain because the other 90% was reserved for a 7-year-old who'd never known her mother. And she thought about herself, sitting in a corner office that smelled like the previous CEO's cigars, wondering when success had started feeling like failure. Her assistant knocked. Board meeting in 10 minutes. The Caldwell loan discussion. Sarah nodded, gathering her materials. Robert Caldwell, real estate developer. $15 million in loans, 6 months behind schedule, $1 million over budget, and demanding more money like it was owed him. She'd reviewed his file 3 times, and every number screamed trouble. This was going to be a fight. The following Tuesday arrived wearing rain. Seattle rain, the kind that didn't storm but settled in like a long-term guest. Sarah found herself watching the clock at 4:30, wondering if Daniel would still come, if 20 years of consistency would break for weather. At 4:44, his truck pulled into the lot. He sat in the cab for 2 minutes. She was learning his patterns now before getting out. Even from the second floor, she could see him take a breath, squaring his shoulders like a man preparing for something that required courage. This time, when he entered, he wasn't alone. Lily Cooper was a tiny thing with dark braids that looked like they'd been done by hands that were trying hard but lacked practice. She wore pink rain boots and a jacket that was slightly too big, probably bought with room to grow. In her arms, she carried a stuffed octopus that had been loved into disrepair. One eye missing, tentacles faded from washing, but held with the fierce possession of a child's favorite thing. She looked around the bank with quiet wonder, taking in the marble floors and high ceilings like she was entering a cathedral. When her father conducted his business at the counter, she stood beside him, patient and still in the way of children who'd learned early to be good in public. Sarah was at the customer service desk. She'd stopped pretending she had other reasons to be there. When Daniel finished his transaction, Lily tugged his sleeve. Her voice was whisper loud, the way kids talk when they're trying to be quiet but haven't quite figured out volume control. Dad, is that the nice lady? Daniel followed her gaze to Sarah. Something complicated crossed his face recognition, wariness, maybe a flicker of interest he didn't want to acknowledge. That's Miss Montgomery, Lil. But Lily was already moving, walking straight over with the confidence of a child who'd been raised to believe people were basically good. Hi, I'm Lily. This is Professor Tentacles. He's an octopus. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? Sarah crouched to Lily's level, bringing herself into the child's eyeline. Up close, she could see that Lily had her father's eyes, that same faded denim blue, and a dusting of freckles across her nose. I didn't know that. Why do they need 3 hearts? Because they're really smart, and their bodies are complicated. Lily held up the octopus like it was evidence. Most people only have 1 heart, but I think some people might have more. Like Dad. He has to have extra hearts because he loves for 2 people now. Him and Mommy. Sarah felt the words land in her chest. She glanced up at Daniel, who'd gone very still. That's a beautiful way to think about it. Dad says Mommy would have loved to know about octopuses. Lily looked at Professor Tentacles with something like reverence. She was a teacher. She taught little kids. Dad says she would have taught me everything if she'd gotten to stay. I'm sure she would have. Sarah's voice came out rougher than intended. But Dad teaches me instead. He's really good at it. He knows about stars and birds and why the ocean is salty and how to fix broken things. Lily's face was earnest, open. You have kind eyes, Miss Montgomery. Dad always says kind people are worth knowing. You should talk to him more. Lily. Daniel's voice carried a warning, but it was gentle. What? It's true. You said it yesterday when we were making dinner. You said Miss. Montgomery seemed kind. Lily looked between the adults, sensing she'd said something that mattered but not quite understanding what. Did I say something wrong? No, sweetheart. You're fine. Daniel moved closer, his hand settling on Lily's shoulder, protective, grounding. He met Sarah's eyes over his daughter's head. I apologize. She's 7. Filters haven't developed yet. Don't apologize. Sarah stood slowly, her knees creaking from the crouch. She's wonderful. You're doing an incredible job. Something softened in Daniel's expression, relief, maybe, or gratitude. Parents of young children lived for those moments when someone acknowledged that they weren't completely destroying the tiny human in their care. Thank you. That means more than you know. They stood there in the bank lobby, an awkward triangle of adult awareness and childhood innocence, until Lily broke the moment by sneezing directly into Professor Tentacles. Daniel produced tissues from his pocket with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd learned to carry supplies for any emergency, and Sarah watched him help Lily clean up, his movements patient and sure. We should go, Daniel said after Lily was sorted. Homework and dinner and the whole evening routine. Of course. Sarah stepped back, giving them space to leave. It was lovely meeting you, Lily. You too, Miss Montgomery. Lily paused at the door, turned back. Do you like octopuses? Because I have books, lots of books. Dad could bring me back and I could show you, if you wanted. Sarah felt her heart crack open a little more. I would like that very much. After they left, Eleanor appeared with her usual impeccable timing. She's something special. That little girl. She is, raised by a man who had no idea what he was doing but figured it out anyway. First year was rough. Daniel looked like he hadn't slept in months because he hadn't, but he showed up every day, kept that baby fed and clean and loved. That's all kids really need. In the end, someone who shows up. Sarah thought about her own childhood. Her mother showing up to every school play despite working 3 jobs, showing up at parent-teacher conferences in her cleaning uniform because she'd come straight from work. Showing up, always showing up, until Sarah got so successful she stopped giving her mother anything to show up for. Eleanor, Sarah said quietly, do you think it's too late to become the kind of person who shows up? The older woman looked at her with eyes that had seen 50 years of people making choices and living with them. It's never too late. You just have to decide what you're willing to show up for, and then do it. Every day, even when it's hard. Over the following weeks, Tuesday became the day Sarah looked forward to most. Sometimes Lily came, bringing facts about marine life, and observations that cut too close to truth. Sometimes Daniel came alone, and they'd exchange brief conversations that felt like reconnaissance, both of them circling something neither was ready to name, testing boundaries, learning each other's territory. But the real shift came on a Wednesday night, 6 weeks after Sarah became CEO. She was in her apartment, the expensive one with the view she'd bought to prove she'd made it eating takeout at her kitchen counter because cooking for one seemed depressing. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Miss Montgomery? It's Daniel Cooper. I got your number from Eleanor. I hope that's okay. Sarah's heart jumped. Of course. Is everything all right? A pause. She could hear background noise, traffic, maybe, or rain. Yes and no. I'm at Swedish Medical. Lily had an accident at school. Fell off the monkey bars, broke her arm. She's fine. They've said it, but I'm going to miss tomorrow's consulting session. Wanted to let you know. Daniel, don't worry about work. Is she really okay? Scared. In pain. They gave her something for it, but she's pretty shaken up. His voice cracked slightly. It's her first broken bone. She keeps asking if it means she can't be a marine biologist anymore because what if she can't swim with a broken arm? Sarah felt something fierce rise in her chest. Can I come? To the hospital? I know it's probably inappropriate, but I'd like to be there. If that's okay. Silence. Then, because I care about her, about both of you. The truth, simple and terrifying. And because showing up matters. Another pause. Sarah could hear him breathing, making a decision. Room 342. Swedish First Hill. She was there in 20 minutes. Found Daniel in the hallway outside Lily's room, looking like he'd aged a decade in an afternoon. His work clothes were dirty, and there was a smear of what might have been blood on his sleeve, Lily's, probably from the initial fall. He stood with his arms crossed, his shoulders curved in like he was trying to make himself smaller, less present, less real. "How is she?" Sarah asked. "Sleeping, finally. They gave her good drugs." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up in ways that would have been funny if his eyes weren't so raw. "I got the call at work. She fell during recess. The school said she wasn't even doing anything dangerous, just playing normal monkey bar games. But she lost her grip, and..." He stopped. Started again. 8 feet. That's all it was. 8 feet, and she broke her radius clean through. Sarah didn't think. She just stepped close and put her arms around him, and Daniel Cooper, who'd held everything together for 7 years, who'd raised a daughter alone and never once asked for help, finally let himself break just a little. He didn't sob. Men like Daniel didn't sob. But his shoulders shook and his breath came ragged, and Sarah held him while he let out 7 years of being strong for everyone else. "I'm so tired," he whispered against her shoulder. "I'm so fucking tired of doing this alone." "You're not alone. Not anymore." He pulled back, his eyes red but clearing. "I can't, Sarah. I can't ask you to. We barely know each other. So let's change that. Let me know you. Let me help. Why? Why would you want to take on this mess?" Sarah thought about it. About the empty apartment and the expensive view and the corner office that felt like a prison. About Daniel's Tuesday deposits and Lily's 3-hearted octopus and the way this man measured worth in presents instead of paychecks. "Because for the first time in 15 years, I want to show up for something that actually matters," she said. "And you matter." Daniel stared at her for a long moment. Then he took her hand, just held it, his palm warm and calloused against hers, and led her into Lily's room. The little girl was asleep, her arm in a bright purple cast, her face relaxed in the way of children who still believed broken things could be fixed. Professor Tentacles was tucked under her good arm, keeping watch. "She asked for you," Daniel said quietly. "When they were setting the bone. She was crying and scared, and she said, 'I wish Miss Sarah was here.' Not her grandparents, they died years ago. Not her teacher. You," he looked at Sarah. "I don't know what that means, but it means something." Sarah squeezed his hand. "It means I need to start showing up for real." They sat together in the hospital room's uncomfortable chairs, keeping vigil while Lily slept, and somewhere in those quiet hours, something shifted between them. A recognition, an acknowledgement. The first fragile threads of something that might become strong if they were careful with it. At 2 a.m., Lily woke up, saw Sarah, and smiled through the pain medication haze. "You came." "Of course I came. Dad said you had important CEO things to do." "Nothing's more important than this," Sarah said, and meant it. Lily's eyes were already closing again, dragged down by exhaustion and medication, but she mumbled, 3 hearts. Octopuses know. Sometimes you need extra hearts. To love enough people." And then she was out again, leaving the adults to sit with the weight of a child's wisdom. Daniel looked at Sarah in the dim hospital light. "She's right, you know, about needing extra hearts." His voice was barely a whisper. "I thought mine was used up, thought Rachel took it all with her. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe you just needed time to grow new parts, to heal enough that there was room. Is that what this is? Healing?" "I think so." Sarah touched his hand again. "I hope so." They stayed until dawn, when the nurse came to check Lily's vitals and kick them out for morning rounds. In the hospital parking lot, standing by their separate cars, Daniel caught Sarah's wrist. "Thank you for coming, for staying, for..." He struggled with the words. "For seeing us. Thank you for letting me." He kissed her then. Just a brush of lips, tentative and careful, both of them terrified and brave at once. When he pulled back, his eyes were wet. "I don't know how to do this. Haven't done it in 7 years. We'll figure it out together. Rachel would want you to be happy, would want Lily to have people who love her. would want you to live, not just survive. Sarah cupped his face, feeling the scratch of morning stubble. You said it yourself, she'd want you to have 3 hearts if that's what it took. Daniel laughed, broken and beautiful. You're quoting my 7-year-old now? Your 7-year-old is smarter than both of us. Won't argue with that, but the reality of what they were starting, of what it would cost to try hit them both in the following days. Daniel was terrified. Sarah could see it in the way he'd reach for her hand and then pull back, the way he'd start to say something and stop, the way he still wore his wedding ring even though he'd admitted he wanted to try. 3 days after the hospital, he showed up at Sarah's apartment at 8 p.m., soaked from rain, looking wrecked. Can we talk? She pulled him inside, got him a towel, made him sit on her expensive couch that had never been properly used. What's wrong? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. He dried his hair roughly, making it stand up wild. I can't stop thinking about Rachel, about what it means to move on, about whether I even have the right to what? Be happy? Love someone? Live? Yes. The word came out broken. She didn't get to live. She didn't get to watch Lily grow up. She didn't get to see her daughter lose her first tooth or learn to read or break her arm falling off monkey bars. And I get to have all of that, and now I might get to have you too? How is that fair? Sarah moved to sit beside him, not touching, just present. It's not fair. None of it is fair. Rachel should be here. Lily should have known her mother. You should have had more than 7 years together. She took a breath. But making yourself miserable for the rest of your life doesn't make it more fair. It just means 2 people died that day, instead of 1. That's what my therapist says. I saw one, after Rachel died. For 2 years, she said I was trying to honor Rachel by refusing to heal. But all I was really doing was punishing myself. Daniel leaned back, staring at Sarah's ceiling. I stopped going because hearing the truth got too hard. What was the truth? That I was angry at Rachel for dying. For leaving me alone with a baby I didn't know how to care for. For making me choose between career and fatherhood when she should have been there to share the load. For, his voice cracked, for giving me the best 7 years of my life, and then taking them away without warning. That's not wrong to feel. It feels wrong. Feels like betrayal. Grief is messy. Love is messy. You can love someone and be angry at them for dying. Both things are true. Sarah finally took his hand. And you can love Rachel forever and still make room for someone new. Hearts don't work like hard drives. They don't run out of space. Daniel turned to look at her, his eyes searching her face. How are you so sure? Because I watched my mother love my father, even after he died. Watched her keep his photo on her nightstand. Talk to him like he could hear her. Cry on their anniversary every year. And then she met someone new when I was 12. A good man who loved her and respected that she'd never stop loving Dad. And you know what? She was happier. Not because she loved Dad less, but because she let herself love more. What happened to him? They got married when I was 15. Had 10 good years before she died. Sarah's voice thickened. I didn't go to her funeral. I was in Tokyo closing a deal. Chose success over showing up for the one person who'd always shown up for me. Daniel squeezed her hand. That's why this matters to you. Showing up. That's why you matter to me. Because you're what I should have been. Present. Prioritizing what's real over what looks impressive on paper. They sat in silence for a while, just holding hands in Sarah's sterile apartment while rain hammered the windows. Finally, Daniel spoke again. I took the ring off tonight. Put it in a box in my dresser. First time in 7 years. He held up his bare left hand. Keeps feeling wrong, like I'm naked. You can put it back on if you need to. No. I need to learn to feel naked. Need to learn that loving you doesn't erase loving her. He turned to face Sarah fully. But I need you to understand something. I'm going to be slow. I'm going to fuck up. I'm going to have days where I can't touch you because touching you feels like betraying Rachel. I'm going to have moments where I'm so scared of losing you that I'll push you away. And Lily, God. Lily is the most important thing. If this doesn't work, if we try and fail, she's the one who'll be hurt. I can't let her lose someone else she loves. Then we'll be careful. We'll go slow. We'll protect her. Sarah brought his hand to her lips, kissed his knuckles. And we'll be honest. No pretending. No hiding. If you're scared, you tell me. If I'm moving too fast, you tell me. Deal? Deal. He kissed her then, properly this time, like he was claiming something instead of testing. And Sarah felt the shift from circling to choosing, from maybe to let's try. But the next day at work, reality crashed back in. Robert Caldwell appeared in Sarah's office, red-faced and demanding. The board had frozen his loan pending investigation, and he was threatening lawsuits, bad press, anything to force their hand. "You've ruined me," he snarled across her desk. "Based on the word of a warehouse worker. Do you know how ridiculous that makes you look? Mr. Cooper is a senior financial analyst with 7 years' experience. His assessment was correct, your invoices were fraudulent." Sarah kept her voice level, and the forensic audit confirmed it. "You've been lying about expenses for 6 months. You can't prove that." "Actually, we can. The prosecutor's office received our evidence yesterday. I imagine you'll be hearing from them soon." Caldwell's face went purple. "This isn't over. I'll destroy you. I'll destroy this bank. I'll make sure everyone knows that the new CEO is sleeping with employees and making personal decisions that hurt shareholders." Sarah went very still. "What did you say? Oh, you think I don't know? You think I didn't see you at the hospital with Cooper? Holding his hand like some lovesick teenager? You're compromised. Emotionally involved with a subordinate. That's grounds for removal. Mr. Cooper is a consultant, not an employee, and my personal life is none of your concern. It is when it affects your judgment, when it makes you prioritize some warehouse worker over a $15 million client." Caldwell leaned forward. "The board's going to hear about this, and they're going to ask questions you can't answer." After he left, Sarah sat in her office, feeling the walls close in. He was right about one thing: the board would care, would question her judgment, would wonder if she'd elevated Daniel because of his skills or because of her feelings. She called an emergency meeting with Eleanor and the board chairman, laid out everything: her relationship with Daniel, the timeline, the fact that every professional decision she'd made regarding him had been based on merit before feelings were involved. The chairman listened carefully. "Are you in love with him?" Sarah hesitated. Then, "Yes." "Does it affect your professional judgment?" "No. If anything, it makes me more careful, more certain that every decision is defensible on its merits." "And if the board asks you to choose, the relationship or the job?" Sarah thought about her empty apartment and her expensive view and the corner office that felt like a prison. Thought about Daniel's Tuesday deposits and Lily's broken arm and the way they'd both looked at her like she was someone worth showing up for. "I'd choose them," she said quietly. "Every time. I'd choose showing up over success." The chairman smiled. "Good. That's the right answer. Means you've finally figured out what matters." He stood. "I'll handle Caldwell. He's grasping at straws because he knows he's going down. But Sarah, be smart. Keep the relationship disclosed. Keep boundaries clear at work. And whatever you do, don't give the gossips ammunition." After he left, Eleanor lingered. "You meant it. About choosing them over the job." "I did." "Good. Means you're finally growing up." Eleanor headed for the door, then paused. "Your mother would be proud. You're finally showing up." That Tuesday, at 4:45, Daniel came with Lily. Her cast was now covered in signatures and drawings, friends from school, teachers. Even Daniel had drawn a surprisingly good octopus. They approached the counter, and Sarah met them there like always. "How's the arm, Lily?" "Itchy. And Dad says I can't swim for 6 weeks, which is terrible because I was learning butterfly stroke." Lily held up the cast. "But look, everyone signed it. Even you can, if you want." Sarah took the offered Sharpie and thought about what to write. Finally, she drew a small heart with 3 chambers simplified octopus anatomy. Lily looked at it and grinned. 3 hearts. "You remembered. I remember everything you tell me." While Daniel conducted his deposit, Lily leaned close to Sarah. "Dad's happier now. Did you notice? He smiles more. Real smiles, not just polite ones. She clutched Professor Tentacles. Thank you for making him happy. He makes me happy too. Good. Because I've been praying for this. Lily said it matter-of-factly, the way she said everything. Been praying that Dad would find someone who sees how special he is. Someone who doesn't just want him for what he can do, but for who he is. I think God sent you. Sarah felt tears threaten. I think your dad's the special one. He raised an incredible daughter. He's special and I'm special. Both things can be true. Lily looked at her with those two knowing eyes. Are you going to marry him? Lily, it's a little early. But if he asked, would you say yes? Sarah thought about lying, about deflecting, about being an adult and managing expectations. But Lily deserved honesty. Yes, if he asked, I'd say yes. Good, because I already drew pictures of our family. 3 people and an octopus, just in case. When Daniel finished and came to collect his daughter, he must have read something in Sarah's face. What did she say? Ask me later. That bad? That good? That scary? That perfect? He smiled that full, transformative smile that made him look 10 years younger. I'm learning that scary and perfect aren't mutually exclusive. No, they're really not. Over the following months, they built something careful and real. Daniel introduced Sarah to his routines Tuesday, deposits that now included all 3 of them. Sunday morning pancakes where Lily lectured about sea creatures, bedtime stories where Daniel did all the voices and Lily critiqued his accuracy. Sarah introduced them to her world-quiet dinners at restaurants where Lily learned to order for herself. Museum trips where they'd spend 2 hours looking at exactly 3 paintings because Lily asked so many questions. They learned each other slowly. Sarah discovered that Daniel had nightmares, sometimes reliving Rachel's death, waking up gasping like he was drowning. She'd hold him while he shook, waiting until he could breathe again. He discovered that Sarah had panic attacks before big board meetings, her success anxiety manifesting in physical symptoms she'd hidden for years. He'd text her right before, "You've got this, and if you don't, we'll figure it out together." Lily, for her part, appointed herself the relationship manager. She'd ask Daniel pointed questions at dinner. "Did you tell Sarah you loved her today? Because you should. People need to hear it." She'd interrogate Sarah during their Friday afternoon tradition at the aquarium. "Are you sure you love Dad and not just the idea of him? Because he's had his heart broken enough." 6 months after Lily broke her arm, Sarah took Daniel to meet her mother's grave. They stood in the cemetery while rain misted down, and Sarah told Rachel everything about the hospital, about being scared, about learning to love Daniel without feeling like she was stealing him. "I know you loved him first," Sarah said to the headstone. "I know Lily should have been yours. I know I'm standing in a space that should have been filled by you. But I promise I'll take care of them. I promise I'll show up. I promise I'll love them as fiercely as you would have if you'd gotten to stay." Daniel's hand found hers. "She would have liked you. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." Rachel valued honesty above everything. She'd respect that you're not trying to replace her, that you're not pretending she didn't matter. She'd see that you love Lily for Lily, not as some duty, and his voice cracked. "She'd be relieved that I'm not alone anymore." They visited every month after that, sometimes with Lily, sometimes just the 2 of them. Sarah got used to talking to a woman she'd never met, telling her about Lily's latest marine biology obsession, or Daniel's promotion to senior VP, or the way the 3 of them were building something that honored Rachel while being entirely new. Then came the board meeting that changed everything. The chairman was retiring, and the succession vote was scheduled. Sarah had spent 8 months proving herself, and she had support, but Margaret Chen and her allies were pushing for an external candidate. The night before the vote, Daniel found Sarah in her office at 8 p.m., stress-eating candy and reviewing her presentation for the 100th time. "Come home," he said. "I can't. The meeting's tomorrow. I need to be ready. You've been ready for months. What you need is sleep and food that didn't come from a vending machine." He moved behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "Sarah, come home." The word hit her home. Not to my place or to the apartment. Home, like it was theirs, like she belonged there. What if I lose tomorrow? What if they choose the external candidate because I'm too young or too rigid or too... Then you'll have done your best, and we'll figure out what comes next. Daniel turned her chair to face him. But win or lose, you're coming home tonight. Lily's making dinner, by which I mean I'm making dinner and she's supervising, which means making everything take 3 times as long. And then we're going to eat together and watch her presentation about cuttlefish, and you're going to get 8 hours of sleep in a real bed. In that order. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. You're bossy. I'm practical. And I'm in love with you. Which means I get to boss you around occasionally when you're self-destructing. You love me? Of course I love you. Have for months. Just been too scared to say it. He pulled her to her feet. But I'm saying it now. I love you, Sarah Montgomery. I love your fierce commitment to doing right. I love the way you crouch down to talk to Lily like she's a person worth listening to. I love that you visit Rachel's grave and tell her about our lives. I love that you've learned to make Tuesday deposits without being told. I love... She kissed him, cutting off the words, tasting truth and fear and hope all mixed together. When they broke apart, she was crying. I love you too. So much it scares me. Good. Means it's real. They went home to Daniel's apartment that had become theirs in all but paperwork, and Lily served dinner wearing her chef's hat, narrating every ingredient like she was hosting a cooking show. After, they watched her presentation, which had somehow expanded to include squid, cuttlefish, and a digression on whether octopuses were aliens. At 9, they tucked her in together, and Lily held both their hands. Are you staying tonight? Sarah glanced at Daniel, who nodded. If that's okay with you, it's perfect, because then when I wake up, we'll all be together. Like a real family. Lily squeezed their hands. That's what we are now, right? A family? Yes, sweetheart, Daniel said. That's exactly what we are. After Lily fell asleep, Daniel and Sarah lay in his bed, their bed, really, since Sarah had been staying over more nights than not, and talked about the meeting tomorrow. What if they vote for someone else? Sarah asked into the darkness. Then you'll have tried, and you'll know you gave it everything, and you'll still have us. What if Caldwell's accusations stick? What if the board thinks I promoted you because of our relationship? Then I'll resign. Remove the conflict. Daniel's voice was firm. Your career matters. I won't be the reason it ends. No. Sarah turned to face him. If I lose tomorrow, I don't want it to be because I chose success over integrity. I promoted you because you're brilliant. I fell in love with you because you're good. Both things are true. And I won't let anyone make them mutually exclusive. Then we'll face it together. Whatever happens. The board meeting was exactly as brutal as Sarah expected. She presented her case, her track record, her vision, her results. The board asked pointed questions, and Margaret brought up Daniel, asking if Sarah's judgment had been compromised by personal involvement. Mr. Cooper saved this bank from several catastrophic loans, Sarah said clearly. Every promotion I've given him has been based on merit, documented with performance reviews and verified by multiple supervisors. My personal relationship with him began months after his initial consulting work, and I've kept appropriate boundaries throughout. If you're suggesting I'm compromised, show me one decision I've made regarding him that wasn't justified by results. Margaret couldn't. The vote proceeded. 8 members in favor of Sarah, 3 for the external candidate. It wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. The chairman, soon to be former chairman, shook her hand. Congratulations, Madam Chairman. You've earned this. Sarah called Daniel from the parking lot, crying too hard to speak properly. I won. Of course you did. You're brilliant. We need to celebrate. Where's Lily? School until 3, which means we have... He checked his watch. 4 hours. Come to my office. Right now. Sarah, that's inappropriate. You're my boss, and I'm resigning as your direct supervisor, effective immediately. We'll restructure your reporting to eliminate any conflict of interest. Now get here before I change my mind about appropriate workplace behavior." He was there in 20 minutes, and they celebrated in ways that were decidedly unprofessional but entirely necessary. After, lying on her office couch, Daniel played with her hair and asked the question they'd both been avoiding. "What happens now? Now I become chairman in 6 months. Now you become senior VP with a new reporting structure. Now we—" Sarah stopped. "Now we figure out what comes next. I want next to include you. Permanently." Daniel sat up, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen. "I want to get married. I want Lily to have a mother who chose her, not one she never got to know. I want 3 of us making Tuesday deposits together. I want—" "Yes. I haven't asked yet." "Then ask." Daniel laughed, the sound breaking with emotion. "I don't have a ring. I didn't plan this. I just know that I can't imagine tomorrow without you in it. And that's what my mother wanted me to understand. That hope is built one day at a time, and every day with you is more than I thought I'd get to have. Daniel Cooper, if you don't ask me in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to ask you. Will you marry me?" "Yes. God. Yes. Always yes." They told Lily that night. Over pizza and octopus documentaries, she screamed so loud the neighbors knocked on the wall. Then she drew a new family portrait, 3 people and an octopus, just like she'd said, and taped it to the refrigerator with a note that said, "Finally." 3 months later, on a Tuesday morning, Daniel came to the bank with a different kind of transaction. Sarah met him at the counter, where Maria waited with knowing eyes. "I need to close my savings account," Daniel said, his voice formal for the occasion. "The one my mother opened. Account number 457892334. All of it?" Sarah kept her voice steady despite knowing what this meant. "All of it." He handed over the withdrawal slip. $56,312. 20 years of deposits. Time to use it for what it was meant for. Maria processed the transaction in respectful silence. When she handed Daniel the cashier's check, her eyes were bright. "Your mother would be proud." "I hope so." Daniel took Sarah's hand. "I'm using it to buy a house. Well, a down payment on one. Somewhere with a yard for Lily. 3 bedrooms. Space for all of us." Sarah felt her throat tighten. "You're sure? That money was always meant for tomorrow. And tomorrow is here. You're here. We're here." He squeezed her hand. "My mother told me to build hope, $1 at a time. Well, I've built it. Now I want to live in it." They bought a house in Ballard, the neighborhood Daniel had always lived in, where neighbors knew his name and Lily's school was 3 blocks away. It had a yard for summer barbecues, and a basement Daniel converted into an office for both of them. The kitchen was big enough for all 3 of them to cook in without tripping over each other, and Lily's room had a window that looked out on the street where she could watch the world go by. On moving day, as they carried boxes through the door, Lily planted herself in the middle of the empty living room and announced, "This is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted." "You wanted an empty house that smells like paint?" Daniel teased, ruffling her hair. "I wanted home. With all of us. Together." She looked at Sarah with complete seriousness. "Can I call you Mom? I've been wanting to ask, but I didn't know if it was okay." Sarah crouched down, bringing herself to Lily's level the way she had that first day in the bank. "I would be honored. But you should know I'm not trying to replace your first mom. She'll always be your mom, too." "I know. But I think maybe I'm lucky. I get to have 2 moms. One in heaven who loved me first, and one here who chose me. That's pretty special, right?" "That's incredibly special." "Good. Because Mom sounds better than Miss Sarah. And when you marry Dad, you'll be my real mom anyway, so we might as well practice." They married 6 months later, in the bank where it all started. Eleanor officiated. She'd gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion, and Lily was the flower girl, carrying Professor Tentacles down the aisle, because he's part of the family too. The ceremony was small, just bank staff and a few close friends, and when Daniel said his vows, he spoke to both Sarah and Rachel. Rachel, thank you for 7 years of showing me what love looks like. Thank you for Lily, who's the best thing I've ever been part of making. And thank you for telling me it was okay to live again. I hope I'm making you proud. Then he turned to Sarah. And you. You showed up when I'd stopped believing anyone would. You saw past warehouse work to who I actually am. You loved my daughter like she was yours before she officially was. You taught me that hearts don't run out of space, they just keep growing to hold what matters. His voice cracked. I promise to show up. Every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I promise to love you the way you've loved us fiercely, patiently, permanently. Sarah could barely see through tears. I promise to keep showing up too. To choose presence over success. To love Lily as fiercely as Rachel would have. To build hope one day at a time with you, until we have enough to last the rest of our lives. They kissed as husband and wife, and Lily cheered. And somewhere in the foundation of the building, 20 years of Tuesday deposits whispered approval. That Tuesday, at 4:45, they came to the bank as a family. No deposit to make the account was closed, its purpose fulfilled. But they stood at the counter where Daniel had stood for 20 years, and Maria pulled out the deposit slip he'd filled out on his very first visit, preserved in the bank's archives. 15 years old, Maria said, showing them Daniel's teenage handwriting. Your mother brought you in. You were trying so hard not to cry. Daniel looked at the slip, $5, account labeled Anna's Promise, and felt the full weight of what his mother had given him. Not money, not savings, but hope. The belief that tomorrow existed, even in the darkest days. That small, consistent actions added up to something impossible to ignore. That showing up mattered more than any single grand gesture. She knew, he said quietly. She knew I'd need this, need the routine, need the reminder that I could keep promises even when everything else fell apart. She knew you, Sarah said, her hand in his. And she raised you to be someone worth knowing. Lily tugged both their hands. Are we going to start a new account? For our family? Daniel and Sarah looked at each other. Then together, yes, they opened the Cooper family account that day. Made their first deposit together, 3 signatures on the slip. 3 people building tomorrow. Not $47 this time. Not saving for college or emergencies or some distant future. Just putting aside money for vacations and adventures and all the small joys that made life worth living. As they walked out of the bank together, Lily between them holding both their hands, Daniel looked back one more time. At the marble floors where he'd stood for 20 years. At the counter where he'd kept a promise to a dead mother and accidentally found a living future. At the place where hope had been built $1 at a time until it was strong enough to hold 3 hearts. Thank you, Mom, he whispered, for teaching me to remember tomorrow, for showing me that showing up is everything, for the promise that brought me here. Sarah squeezed his hand. Lily swung between them, chattering about octopuses and home and all the tomorrows they'd build together. And at 4:45, like clockwork, the Cooper family walked into their future.